Hey everyone, welcome back to this channel. This is part 2 of the Euro digs. Last week I talked about Portugal. Thanks for commenting, interacting, watching. Appreciate very much. This week, or today, I want to talk about my time in Germany, which is a country that I have a lot of time for, not least because I'm fascinated and fixated on the language, which I've been learning for a long time. And I think when you go, for example, to a record store and you spend, a couple of hours digging, it makes the experience even more worthwhile when you can communicate with the dude behind the counter in their language. I think for me, these are very meaningful exchanges. But look, you can still have a good time even if you don't speak German. I started in Berlin, which is a city that I know pretty well. There was no real sightseeing. We had like a day and a half in Berlin, so not very long. So we focused on, cool areas rather than staying in the center. And we spent a good portion of time strolling down the Kastanienallee, which is a very well-known street, sort of north of the center, very close to the Bernauer Straße Berlin Wall Memorial, which I highly recommend if you've never been to Berlin, because that's the only place you can see the two sections of the wall still remaining. And there's a store on Kastanienallee called Oye Records, which was unfortunately closed because it was the 2nd of January and they were just taking their break or whatnot. I did visit another store on Kastanienallee, which was okay. It was a sort of bookstore come record store with some clothes in there, and the lady was, she was a little bit cantankerous. But anyway, I didn't really pick up anything. I just had a look for 10 minutes in there. There are other stores in Kastanienallee, but there was nothing that I could, that I really wanted profoundly, and ended up in Kreuzberg in the evening, which, in Oranienstraße, which is also like kind of a sort of a hip little street, but it's more multicultural. There's lots of Turkish restaurants and the like. But I wouldn't say that my time digging in Berlin was absolutely mind-blowing. The best probably was the record store that was on the street we were staying in, which was in Waldenstraße, which there's a store called Record Store Berlin, which is there, which is not, not mind-blowing by any means, but I found a couple of nice things there, and that was cool. Then we moved on to Dresden, which is a different kettle of fish altogether. What a beautiful city! Oh my God! If I can recommend a destination in Germany that will blow you away, surely Dresden is the old town. So it's separated by the Elbe, which is the river, and you've got the old town and the new town on the other side. The old town is historic. Well, it's an interesting conundrum because Dresden was actually flattened to nothing during the war. And a lot of the buildings have been rebuilt almost identical. So you've got this kind of collection of amazing buildings, from the museum to the Frauenkirche, the opera house. They're all like kind of in the same kind of square. It's just stunning. And then you've got the bridge that with the river that cuts the city in two. So in addition to being a beautiful city, it's got a lot of kind of interesting record stores on the other side of the river, which is the new part of town, I will say. Very gentrified, lots of coffee shops and bookshops and clothes shop and and record stores. I started off in a store called Zentralorgan, which is just off the Luisenstrasse, which is the one of the main streets in the old town, in the new town. I mean, and I spent 45 minutes in there. I mean, there are lots of really interesting things, and I picked up a few German records in there. Around the corner was another place called Drop At Records, just like a few meters away, which promised more than it delivered. It wasn't, there wasn't anything there that I really truly wanted. It was a beautiful shop, well organized and everything, but for me personally, nothing. And then around the corner there was another place called Fat Fender's Record Store, which with a name like that doesn't really lend itself to maybe finding things, but it was a store with mostly ambient, world techno, just all sorts of things that I really love. And I had a great conversation with the dude behind the counter and picked up some really nice records there too, and things that I sort of wasn't expecting to pick up, and really cheap German records. I was very happy with that. Maybe at this point I'll show you some records that I picked up in Dresden. Now I'm going to warn you, there's nothing mind-blowing or no known grails, as people like to refer them. I mean, I hate that word, my God. But they're just nice records that I picked up for the right price, or they were interesting to me. And if they're not interesting to you, but that's a different thing. But for example, these records, I've been on my radar for years and years, but here in Australia, they're always overpriced. They're always too expensive. These were €5 a piece. So I think this one was €8, which is, like pittance here compared to what you would pay here. Eberhard Schöner, Transformation from 1977 or 77. I've got a mixture of electronics, so it's an ambient record, I would say, with Gregorian chanting, with gamelan on it. Unfortunately, also with the guitar of Andy Summers, which comes in and kind of ruins things at times. I love the Police. Okay, I'm not being blasphemous here, but I just think that on this record, sometimes his solos could be turned down a bit. So I picked this up because I thought, I'd wanted this for a while, and it's a great record. I've played it tons of times since I've been back. And then in Fat Fenders, they also had a copy of this, which I'd been on the lookout for. It's kind of in the want list in my mind. I don't have a want list, but one of these records, which here I've seen to up to $100 in shops in Melbourne, and it was like €5. And I wanted it mostly because it's got this amazing tune, Why Don't You Answer, the second track. Now this features the whole of the Police, Sting, Stuart Copeland on drums, and Andy Summers on e-guitar. But it's kind of a electronic meets dance. It's got a kind of disco-ish tinge as well. It's got ambient parts in it. I mean, those two records are part of a trilogy, but I don't think I'll be bothering really with the third part of the trilogy. I think I've got enough with those. But I do recommend this Eberhard Schöner record. They're fantastic. They're kind of a bridge between ambient pop, world music. It's got a little bit of everything. And they are on Harvest Records. At Fat Fenders, I came across a very interesting record which I picked up. Meistersinger und ihre Kinder. When I opened the record, straight away I was struck by the band. And don't take this the wrong way, but like a mixed race band on the cover like this is always kind of a good sign that something's going to be a little bit funky, a little bit jazzy, a little bit. And yes, this record, it's kind of the fine line between very cool and very cheesy, cool and cheesy, Like some of the songs you think, oh, is this? But on the whole, I really love this record. I've played it tons of times since I've come back. When it came up in the racks, like it just was in the section. I can't remember. I think it was in the jazz section in the shop. I was straight away struck by the cover, which looks like kind of a private pressing kind of a deal. It's not, obviously. So it's got kind of a jazzy, funky, disco-y tinge mixed with a sort of pastoral krautrock. There's lyrics in German all the way through. And I don't know, I just really love this record. It's just struck me as like a really interesting piece, and which I wouldn't have bought, unless it come right in front of me in the store. So take a listen. I don't think it's going to be everyone's cup of tea, basically. But for me, I dig that sound. I was, it's got a sort of a cheesy but cool kind of sound. And the last is a German classic, Knef, Hildegard Knef. She was an actor, very popular actor and singer. She was described as the something along the lines of the greatest non-singer to record pop music in German. So everything is sung in German. And what you've got here is a mix between like 60s German pop music, Schlager type, but you also have a very strong, distinct psychedelic vibe, kind of, 60s. I mean, even the cover kind of reflects that, You've got Serge Gainsbourg with a kind of a Lee Hazelwood kind of vibe there as well. And if you put Nico there in the mix, if Nico sang in German, which I think she has on some of the records, but people know Nico as mostly like Chelsea Girl. It's like the Meistersinger record. It's got some really cheesy moments, but the great moments are amazing. Hildegard Knef, which came out originally in 1970, kind of like a companion piece to things like, like the 60s Gainsbourg pieces. Then finally, we headed out to Leipzig, which is a wonderful city as well. Very, very much worth seeing. I wanted to go to Leipzig for a very strange reason. Years ago, I'd seen a documentary on the monument to the Battle of the Nations, which is a big known battle in which Napoleon was defeated. As a result, they built this memorial, which is this kind of 90-meter folly with a lake in front of it. And I thought, I need to go to Leipzig just to see this. I mean, I'm not a war fanatic or anything, there's just some places that are just I find interesting like that. And so, because I was heading to Leipzig, I arranged to grab the Malo Moray album. I don't know if you're familiar with Malo Moray. He's a double bassist who lives in Leipzig, and I caught him the first time on Basement 45 German interview. So Basement 45 is a German vinyl community channel, and he interviewed Malo Moray, and I listened to the interview and went and listened to his record, and so that was really interesting premise. It's an ambient, experimental, kind of glitchy, kind of, we'll say that, record. And, I started communicating with Malo, and I said, well, I'm coming to Leipzig. Can I come and grab the record from you? And he was very nice, and we just talked. And he said, I worked at a store called Phonozentrum. You can come and pick the record from there. Unfortunately, when I went, Malo wasn't working for, I couldn't go the other day where he was working, but I ended up hanging out at Phonocentrum for a couple of hours. The dude, Daniel, who runs the store, is a super nice dude. We talked about all sorts of things, including Georges Brassens. And I bought quite a few records from him. I obviously picked up the Malo Moray record. Now, it comes out in a cardboard box, like a mailer basically, and looks like this when you pull it out. I've got the blue version. There's an orange as well. Double LP, comes up with prints which I haven't opened as well either, but and a cassette of the album or some tracks, or I don't know what's on the cassette because I haven't played either. But all this to say that this is a fantastic record. It's maybe not for everyone. It's got its moments, but I find it to be kind of ambient, cosmic, mixed with a little bit of modern classical. So thank you. Malo offered to sign it for me, but I just, I'm not into signed records really. I mean, I'm happy with this. So I picked this up at Phonocentrum, and I picked up a few records, and I talked to Daniel for a while, and we talked about Amiga records. So if you've never been to Germany, you've probably never seen Amiga records before. I'll show you what Amiga looks like. This is Amiga. Now, in former East Germany, in the GDR, in a German Democratic Republic, in 1947, the state founded a label called Amiga. And that label was released, 30,000 titles, so it was very prolific. And released not only obviously East German music, propaganda, if you will, but also Western titles, because the state was well aware that the citizens through radio waves had access to Western music. And they thought, well, there's no point curbing this. We may as well, release things that we choose. Western records. For example, you've got this Klaus Schulze record, which came out under a different name in its original version. I can't remember which record that is right now, right off the bat. But I saw this record and I thought, well, because these are really super cheap. They're like 5 to 10 euros a pop. They're not very and it's so beautifully done, the artwork, the sleeve. And actually I've played this quite a few times. And Weird Caravan, for example, this is a record from 1981, I think. That's a great tune, great tune. So Amiga. So as a consequence, I did buy, a few more records on Amiga from Phonocentrum, including this here, Steenmeissen. Steenkombo-Meissen, they were sort of a prog band from East Germany. And this is one of their many albums, Reise zum Mittelpunkt des Menschen. Which has its moments. It's not, I wouldn't say it's a killer cosmic record or whatever. It looks like this from the cover, but it's got some very sort of cheesy proggy moments which I'm not super fond of, but overall for what I paid for this, I mean, it was super cheap. The thing with Amiga is that these records are being rediscovered by diggers in Germany. They were for a long time they were ignored because people wanted records from the West and they kind of dismissed Amiga entirely. But now there's a new generation of younger people who are rediscovering these records and sampling them and whatnot. An example of this is with this record here, which Daniel from Phonocentrum was explaining to me that this is a very highly sampled record now. Das unsichtbare Visier, the invisible target, I think, original Filmmusik. So this is a series or a movie, an East German movie, with a soundtrack which is kind of loungy, funky, easy listening, but meets kind of funky. And he just highly recommended this to me because he said, you never find this anywhere else, and it's got, it's got a cool vibe. This thing. I mean, some bits are a bit, again, it's a bit cheesy in parts, but I've listened to this a few times as well, and I've really enjoyed this too. From 79, 1979, and from the same store again on Amiga, picked up this compilation, Zeitklänge Electronics, which is a compilation of many different, mostly East German artists, or maybe even all of them East German artists, from Jürgen Ecker to Wolfgang Paulke, from a lot of people who should be better known. Had they been in the West, they probably would. This would have probably gone under the Krat Rock kind of banner. But as they were East German artists, they were kind of sort of a little bit dismissed, I think. The compilation here came in 1987, just before the fall of the Berlin Wall, which there's nice historical documents. And after Phonocentrum, I headed to another store, which was in the vicinity, not very far, in a really super cool area of town in Leipzig, in the same direction as Phonocentrum. And I ended up in this store, which is quite a big store. The name escapes me right now, but I'll put the name of the store there somewhere. And they had some really great electronic sections and jazz sections. And in the electronic section, I picked up these two amazing records, and I really love those, both of those. I can't take the price stickers off, they're really hard to take. They were both 10 euros a pop, as you can see. Very expensive. By Reinhard Lacomi. Now, Reinhard Lacomi, this is the Traum from Asgard Electronics. This is super cool, really. This is cosmic electronic music. These records were made on Edgar Froese's equipment, actually, which Reinhard Lacomi was able to use and borrow. But yeah, cosmic electronic, not too different from stuff that you would hear on a cluster record or that sort of, kind of ambient sound. And they were both really, really cheap. And Reinhard Lacomi, who is here, is one of the most prolific East German musicians, and he dabbled in a lot of different styles, and these are his electronic albums. So that's Geheime Leben, the Secret Life. Very, very cool. Like, it's just really nice records. And finally, a couple of jazz records that I picked up in that same store. I mean, every time I see anything with Manfred Schuf, I will Schof, as his name should be, I will pick up, and this is on Japo, I think, which is a sub label of ECM, Jazz by Post. This is Scales, again, wonderful kind of modal jazz, just a superb record, with Jasper van Hof on electric piano and piano. So it's mostly a German record as well. That's what I've included here. Beautiful 1976. And this nice surprise, which is on ECM, which is a Swiss or a German, I think it was recorded in Switzerland. the artists could be Swiss or German. I'm not sure. I think they might be German. Two dudes, Thomas de Manga and Heinz Reber, and it's called Cello Organics, which makes sense. It's cello and a pipe organ together, and this makes for very atmospheric, very beautiful music. It's just gorgeous. So that's Germany summed up in way too long, but you don't have to watch if you don't want to. This is the beautiful thing. Take care, everyone, and a third installment on Odds and Sods. Finds from France and even one from Bangkok. Stay tuned.